YouTube. Hello, guys. Hi. It's so good to see you guys tonight. Hello and welcome. Welcome. I'm Dr. Jen. It's great to see you guys. This is Monday evening, so as usual, I am just getting back from the office. I'm still in my scrubs. I wanted to come and talk to you about a topic that's super important to me. I mean, obviously, every health topic is important to me, but I see a lot of this in the office, and that is pre-diabetes, guys. Prediabetes and diabetes are both important and in many ways equally important for different reasons. But prediabetes is a place that I really like to focus, in addition to diabetes, but prediabetes I like to talk about because it's really a chance for things to change. That is a place where people can make really awesome changes. So I'm so glad you guys are here. Tizetta, you're with me on YouTube, AT495304. Tiffany, hey. Anisha, hello. Once again, I got started before I was ready because I always get so excited and I just start before I'm ready. But it's so good to see you guys. Thank you, YouTube and Facebook for joining me. So yeah, we're going to give COVID just a little break. There's clearly a lot of COVID stuff to talk about every single day. You know, I'm posting videos. There's a lot of stuff happening in the world right now too, guys. If you're watching the news just like I am, what's happening in Minneapolis and so many other places, there is a lot going on in this world. So I want to make sure that as we grapple with sort of the craziness that's happening in our world and we try to deal with COVID, that we're also taking care of our minds and our bodies. So today the topic is pre-diabetes. So, you know, why don't we do this? Why don't we jump right in, by the way? We won't dilly-dally a lot, by the way. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a practicing family physician. I do television health segments. I have for 10 years or so. I see patients. I'm an associate professor at Rowan University School of Osteopathic Medicine. I'm also a video creator, so I do videos and stuff like that, talking about lots of different topics. Thank you guys on Facebook for the stars. You guys are awesome, so I so appreciate you sending stars. And thank you guys on YouTube for the super chats and the super stickers. You can find a lot of information about me in the pinned comment on Facebook. And then, I'm sorry, my hair is like, it's such a mess. Although I did get it done this weekend, finally got my hair done. Or you can find it in the description on YouTube. So, all right, guys, I think we should go ahead and get started talking about pre-diabetes. So let's start talking. Now, first of all, if you guys are just joining me, I had said probably right before you came, pre-diabetes is something I really think is important to talk about with your doctor and to talk about in general, because it is that one step before diabetes. And a lot of things can happen in that period. So that's what we're talking about right now. First thing that you need to know, or you might not have known about pre-diabetes, is, first of all, what pre-diabetes is. Let me just tell you first. Pre-diabetes, if it sounds like the step before diabetes, if that's what you're thinking, then you're right in most cases. We call it pre-diabetes because people's blood sugars with pre-diabetes is not high enough to be considered diabetic, but is also too high to be considered normal, okay? So you're sort of in this in-between range. Your sugar is not normal. It's higher than normal, but it's not as high as what a diabetic's sugar would be. And so that's why we call it pre-diabetes. It's really important to know. Now, this is the thing about prediabetes. First of all, 84 million people in the United States have prediabetes. Did you guys know that? Like, I feel like a lot of times people don't know things like that. Like, and that statistic always literally like blows my mind, that there are 84 million people in this country, and that's in the US, that don't realize, rather that have prediabetes. That's 84 million. By the way, 90% of those people, that's us, right? That's you guys, that's me, that's my family, that's people I know, that's my patients. 90% of those 84 million people do not realize they have prediabetes, don't actually realize that their sugar is higher than normal, but yet, of course, not as high as what diabetes would be considered, but that it's higher than normal. The other thing you should understand that I think is super, super important, and why I'm talking about this, is that if you have prediabetes, you have a 50% chance of developing diabetes over the next 5 to 10 years. So your risk factors, your risk for developing diabetes actually goes up just by having prediabetes. It's another reason why we're talking about this, because it's so important. And the other thing I should say too, and this might be like sort of intuitive, you might be like saying like, well, duh, but no, this is really important to know is that most people who eventually get diabetes will have had prediabetes at some point. That's right. Now, not all, okay? Some people literally go from nothing to diabetes, and that's not common. That's not the most common situation. But most people who end up being diabetics were pre-diabetic at some point, which is another reason why it's really important to know the facts about prediabetes and to know really what the deal is, what you have, if you have it, etc., things like that. So that's the first point. Okay. The second thing you need to know about prediabetes, which by the way, is a topic that I really take a lot of pride in talking about this in the office because, and it's probably like my number 3 item I'm going to tell you. But it's because a lot can be done. We can do a lot about prediabetes. We can do a lot about diabetes too. But prediabetes is, I think of as almost like it's an environment that's ripe for change. And it's a really, really important sort of turning point, or rather it can be in someone's life. So the second thing I want to say is that prediabetes doesn't necessarily have any symptoms. Okay. And I think sometimes I have patients that assume that they must be fine and healthy because they feel good. And I hope my patients feel good, right? I hope you feel good. I hope you don't feel bad. I don't want you to feel bad. I want you to feel good. But please understand that just because you feel good doesn't entirely mean that everything on the inside is functioning optimally. So it's kind of like blood pressure, right? Like with blood pressure, I have a lot of patients who say, well, doc, I feel fine, even though their blood pressure is like 180 over 90. And I'm like, I know, you can have sky high blood pressure and feel just fine. Just because you feel fine doesn't necessarily mean that there's nothing else going on or that nothing else needs to be addressed. So when we talk about prediabetes, the number 2 item is that prediabetes is another one of these conditions where you may be walking around town being pre-diabetic and not even realize it because you feel fine. You very likely won't have symptoms. Most people with prediabetes don't. Okay. People with diabetes, if the diabetes is severe and maybe abrupt, et cetera, they may have increased thirst, increased urination, hunger, all this kind of stuff. But with prediabetes, that's not necessarily the case. So keep that in mind as we talk about these different items, is that you may not necessarily know if you have it or not. And feeling good, although that's what we want you to feel, doesn't necessarily mean that prediabetes is not something that's existing for you. Okay. Now, number 3, this is probably the area that makes me most inspired about the concept of prediabetes and where I want you to feel hopeful as well. Okay. Because you remember how in the beginning of the session, I said 84 million people in the United States have pre-diabetes, right? Not only that, I said 90% of those people don't even know that they have it. That's a lot of people who don't know they have diabetes. And pre-diabetes rather. And I also said that there's a 50% chance of developing diabetes over 5 to 10 years if you are pre-diabetic. Remember I said that? Well, my number 3 is that just because you are pre-diabetic doesn't mean that you'll necessarily develop diabetes. Doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to turn into a diabetic. And that's the turning point, and that's where really this fertile ground is. That's where there's an opportunity for intervention and change. The good thing about prediabetes, and honestly, many types of diabetes and many other conditions, is that actually what we do, how we live our lives, how we treat our bodies, oftentimes can influence the conditions that we have and actually improve them. Prediabetes is one of them. That is the good news. Just because you're pre-diabetic does not mean necessarily that you will become a diabetic. And you also can get your blood sugars to a normal level, okay? Which is very exciting because remember, the definition of prediabetes is your blood sugar is higher than what's normal, right? So your blood sugar is not normal. It's too high to be considered normal, but it's not high enough to be considered diabetic. So it's in that sort of middle ground, right? The good news is that things can change and you actually can get your levels to be normal, okay? So let's now go to the risk factors. This is the number 4 thing that you need to know. Okay. So if you're listening and you're watching this video, and I appreciate all of you guys watching, it's so great to see all of you, by the way. A little commercial break. Hello, Facebook. Hello, YouTube. So great to see you. Facebook, you're just showing out with the stars. I really appreciate you guys. You're so sweet for sending all the stars. You find those right underneath the video, etc., or in the comment box. And then on YouTube, you guys are sending super chats and super stickers. And I so appreciate you guys. Rufus on YouTube, I see you. Hello, back at you. He's one of my Dr. Jen superstars. He's also a subscriber of my YouTube groups. So it's great to see you guys. Tiffany, you said definitely get your yearly checkups. You're on YouTube. Yes, absolutely. People need to get their checkups. Absolutely. I'm just taking a look at some of the other comments just to see what you guys are saying before we go into number 4 and number 5, because you guys need to know these. Renee, thank you for sending the stars. I so appreciate it. This is on Facebook. I'm going to pull up and see who else is there. Monica Ann, you've changed your health by eliminating flour and sugar. You lost 22 pounds so far. Oh my God, Monica, that's awesome. Terry, thank you for the stars. I see. So let's see here. Michelle Ellison, how does A1C level affect or impact prediabetes? Actually, the A1C, the hemoglobin A1C, is basically a 3-month average of your sugars. That is what essentially, that's one of the markers that tells us whether you are pre-diabetic or diabetic or none of the above. Okay. So it doesn't necessarily affect your pre-diabetic status. It's an indicator, one of the indicators of where you are, whether you're pre-diabetic, diabetic, etc. Okay. Let's see here. Delina, you're asking, have the reference ranges changed? No, they haven't. And so Pragna, you said, what would help reverse prediabetes? Well, you are 2, 3, 4, 5 steps ahead of me. Bonnie, thank you for the stars. You have a 2-week streak. I love it. Let's see here. So, and Sabrina, you're saying, how do we avoid getting diabetes? So, well, let's talk about it, okay, guys, because this is super important. I see, actually, oh, Daisy, you said you had gestational diabetes with your 27 years ago with your second son. It's really important that you mention gestational diabetes, which is diabetes during pregnancy. I'm going to talk about how that plays a role in all of this, okay? And by the way, I see a lot of my subscribers, Dr. Jen superstars. For those of you who are subscribers on Facebook, you get free lives, you get merchandise discounts, all this kind of stuff. We are like family. So if you're interested in joining the fam, please join my my Facebook group, and also my my supporters group memberships on YouTube as well. So let's jump in to, oops. There we go. Let's jump into number 4, which is what many of you guys are asking, which is basically, what are the risk factors for prediabetes? Meaning, how would I know if I might be someone who's pre-diabetic? How would I know, you might be asking, if I could be one of the 84 million people who's walking around with prediabetes, 90% of which don't even know they have it? Well, we're going to go through those risk factors. Now, keep in mind that many of these risk factors are the same or similar to the risk factors of actually having diabetes, type 2 diabetes. Okay, so let's go through them. Okay, age greater than or equal to 45. Okay, that in and of itself, your age, if that is your age or higher, that's a risk factor for prediabetes. You should be screened just by virtue of your age. Also, if you have a family history of prediabetes or diabetes, that puts you at risk. Okay, so think about your parents, your aunts, your uncles, your siblings. Do people in your family have diabetes or prediabetes? That would be a risk factor for you if that's the case. Also, certain races and ethnic groups have a higher predisposition for being pre-diabetic or even diabetic. Those groups include African Americans, Hispanics, Native Americans, Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, and some other groups as well. If you belong to any of those particular racial or ethnic groups, you may be at higher risk for prediabetes/diabetes. This should be something that you're talking to your doctor about. But not just for these groups of people, of which, of course, I'm included. This is for all of us, but just understand the things that could put you at higher risk. A history of gestational diabetes. Daisy, you mentioned that you had gestational diabetes. That's diabetes during pregnancy. Women who have diabetes during pregnancy are at an increased risk for getting diabetes later on. And so that becoming pre-diabetic certainly could be something that happens for those who have had gestational diabetes, which is why if you were a diabetic when pregnant and during the pregnancy, it puts you at higher risk for prediabetes. You should know that, okay? You should understand that. Polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS, that's a condition that many women have. that puts you at risk. Certain medications also, if you're on like chronic steroids, you're on steroids for certain conditions, whether it's lupus or other conditions, you may be at risk for prediabetes and diabetes if you're on other medications as well. And those who have certain hormonal or hormone conditions that can actually put you at risk for prediabetes as well. Okay. Now, those are some risk factors I think that are very, very important to keep in mind. We call those risk factors, many of those are what we call non modifiable risk factors. Why do we say that? Because you can't change your age, right? You can't change your family history. You can't control that. You can't control your race. You can't control that you've been born with polycystic ovaries and things like that. But there is some hope here, guys, because as many of you guys have been asking, you're asking, what can you do? Well, let me give you some risk factors that are what we call modifiable. So these are risk factors, things that put you at higher risk for prediabetes that you can actually do something about. Okay. One of those is obesity. Obesity is huge. That's a big risk factor for prediabetes and diabetes. We're going to talk about that a little bit more, but your weight, okay, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, tobacco use, and having a sedentary lifestyle, not exercising. Those are all what we call sort of modifiable risk factors. Those are things that put us at risk for diabetes, but there are things we can do something about. Okay. So I know you guys are asking lots of questions. You're asking a lot of great, great questions. Okay. Lavisa, thank you for the stars on Facebook, 150 stars you sent. I so appreciate it. So now let's talk about what do you do? Okay, and that's number 5 in terms of the 5 things you need to know about diabetes. Of course, I gave you more than 5, but let's talk about what you do. Okay, we talked about what diabetes is. We talked about the fact that you may not even know if you have it based on symptoms because you may not have symptoms. In fact, most people with prediabetes don't even have symptoms, right? We also know that the good thing about prediabetes, and in many cases of diabetes, is that it's an opportunity to make changes so that you can actually bring your blood sugars actually down to normal, get out of that prediabetes range and get to normal. Those things can actually happen for many people. We also talked about the risk factors, okay, the things that put you at higher risk for being pre-diabetic. Now let's talk about what you actually can do, okay? Brenda, thank you for the stars. So what actually can you do? The first thing is to increase your exercise. That is right. In fact, I was just recently talking to somebody, a patient of mine, who for family reasons, and she takes care of a number of her family members and is really not able to say go to a gym, if she lived in a place where gyms were open, really wants to get out and walk in the park and stuff, but really because of her caretaking duties is really just not able to do that, can't really leave some of her family members alone, really needs to tend to them. So the question became, so how do I get exercise, Dr. Caudle? I can't do these things. Well, I say get exercise whenever you can and however you can. All that matters is that you're getting extra steps in. So one thing that I did, if you guys follow me on Instagram, I'm not sure if you do, but if you don't, make sure you follow me on Instagram. I'm at Dr. Jen Caudle. But I often post behind the scenes photos in my Instagram stories about what I'm doing and what I'm up to. And last Monday, that was one of it's a beautiful day in New Jersey. And I actually finished my afternoon patients on time to have a dinner break, which I never do. And what I did was I got my jacket and I walked around the building of our office. And I walked for a good 20 to 30 minutes just walking around. I was answering emails and getting work done like on my phone, but I was walking around the building. And after a half hour, I came back in and ate dinner, and then I started my evening hours. You don't necessarily have to buy a whole setup to get exercise in or spend a lot of money or do anything that's completely like, I don't know, just out of the ordinary for what you're able to do. Even if all you're able to do is just go up and down your steps, break a sweat, increase your heart rate. Maybe it's walking laps, maybe it's getting a jump rope and starting to jump rope in place. There are many, many ways to get activity. Just try to get those steps up. And we know that if you can lose 5 to 10% of your body weight, that alone, not that that's all we want you to lose, but that is enough to make a change. So if you think about however much you weigh and you take 5% of that, and you say, okay, I'm going to focus on trying to lose 5% of my body weight in, some period of time, that will make a big difference. And honestly, I say even 5 pounds makes a difference. So don't you be discouraged, just start. Okay. That's going to be really, really important to just sort of get started and get moving. The second thing, so in terms of helping to fix prediabetes, that is one thing. The second thing is, well, healthy eating. Now we know about that, right? But we know that with prediabetes, we're certainly at risk when we eat more carbs, when we eat more sweet stuff, sugary stuff, carbs. We need to sort of watch our carb intake. So I would recommend going to the American Diabetes Association. That website is awesome because it's got a lot of great meal plans. It's got suggestions for your diets. It's got a lot of really great suggestions, things to substitute. Like if you want something sweet, something you can do instead that's got fewer carbs and maybe is healthier for your waistline, check out the American Diabetes Association. It's awesome. By the way, also, guys, they have a risk assessment tool on the ADA, American Diabetes Association, that you can go in and put like what you weigh, what your race is, what your risk factors are, how much you exercise to see how much of a risk you are for prediabetes. Okay. Now, the other things you can do is you can stop smoking. You can make sure that your blood pressure, your cholesterol are within normal range. Okay. And also just making sure that you're seeing your doctor. Okay. We are one of the biggest, hopefully one of the biggest helps with all this. We are here to help you. And the way that we'll know if your blood sugar is high is to test it. We can test it right in the office when you come. We can do a random sugar. We can do a fasting sugar. We can send you to the lab. We can do all sorts of stuff. We can check an A1C. We can help you figure out if you're one of those 84 million pre-diabetics. Okay. Now, one thing I should also say is that this talk is focused on pre-diabetes because I just feel like a lot of information is not focused on pre-diabetics. And this is how I feel, guys. I feel it's really, really important for me. Like if your doctor, if you get labs done, make sure you get the results of your labs, because if your blood sugar is just a little bit high and your doctor either doesn't tell you about it, you may not have known that you've been pre-diabetic for a number of years. You just may not have known, or you may not have gotten tested for diabetes with the A1C to see where you are. Make sure you know exactly what the numbers are and have your doctor explain what they mean. Because if you know that you're pre-diabetic, you can actually make changes that will help improve it. You can actually get out of pre-diabetes. You can actually make sure you don't become diabetic. So I know I'm going on and on and on, but it really is an important place in life to know if you're there, because it's actually a place where you can do something about. For most of us, you can make positive changes, which I really, really love. So you guys are awesome, by the way. Oh, and thank you for Facebook. Look at you with the stars. Thank you so much for the stars, Facebook. Thank you for the super chats and the super stickers. YouTube, you guys are. Kanya, you said this is great information. I'm glad it was helpful. Let's see here, Michelle, you're asking for natural foods and products to work for reduction. This is trying to improve prediabetes and diabetes is the most natural there is, because what it involves is exercise. And I'm not saying that that's all it is, because you may need to take medications, you may need to do other things, but exercise and eating healthier. Okay. That's what it involves. So the great thing about this is you don't need to take anything unless, of course, your doctor prescribes you medications. You don't need to take anything, or there's nothing to take to make your numbers go down unless your doctor prescribes you medications. What you do is you exercise. What you do is you modify what you put in your mouth. And remember, guys, you guys are asking about cinnamon pills and all this stuff. No. And I'm not criticizing it. I think a lot of times we're looking for a quick fix. And I'm not saying that that's what you're looking for. But really, the way to get this better is to exercise, to lose a few pounds, to make sure that you are modifying what you are eating. If your doctor prescribes medications, then yes, absolutely. But please, please, please keep that in mind. Guys, I see you sending a lot of notes. You guys are really amazing. I see a lot of you also are getting your COVID vaccines. I'm so proud of you guys. Keep up the great work. Remember to join my group called I Got the COVID Vaccine. You can put there's a pinned comment that has the link. You can sign up. Make sure you put your email address in so you get my newsletter. Also, let's see here. I have COVID vaccine t-shirts. A lot of you guys are wearing them. You guys look so cute. I love it. I love that you're sharing your experiences getting your COVID vaccine, because that is so important. Remember that diabetes itself is a risk factor for more severe forms of COVID. So with the stuff that we talked about with prediabetes, that will also help with diabetes too, okay? Remember, see your doctor regularly. Get your blood checked regularly. Make sure you know your numbers and what they mean. And the sooner you jump on things like blood sugar and stuff, the better chances you have for making sure that your numbers are normal. Guys, this has been a lot of fun. I hope that this was helpful for you. We just took a little break from COVID. Wasn't that nice? And thank you, Facebook, for all the stars. You guys are really amazing. Thank you, YouTube, for the super chats and super stickers. I will be back, of course, tomorrow with more and more videos, COVID stuff too. Remember to check out things. I got the COVID vaccine group on Facebook. You can also sign up for my newsletter at drjencaudle.com. COVID t-shirts are at drjencaudle.com/shop. Guys, I love you. Take good care of yourselves. Bye, guys. Bye, YouTube.